Hey, good morning, everyone. Firstly, thanks to Pivotal for inviting us along to present. My name's Ed Hoppit. I look after the apps transformation team for VMware here in Europe. We have a team of VMware employees who can help transform the infrastructure underneath your applications as the application journey changes and wants to consume infra in new ways. It's really about talking about a platform to run all the things. Very often in IT, we're bad at building new stuff without building a new silo. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's a bad thing, what we're seeing in the market, what we're seeing our customers do with the infrastructure layer that services like PCF and PKS sit on. I'm going to talk a little bit about innovation and then just give our view as to how you can end up with a platform that allows you to run all the things through a globally consistent operational model, a globally consistent infrastructure model that leverages public and private cloud. And look, the idea that a silo is a barrier to innovation is nothing new. This is a slide that I stole from a VMworld presentation, which is our annual customer conference in 2009. And way back then, we were concerned about the challenges that building things in silos causes. Just because I want to consume infrastructure in a new way, that new way is called Kubernetes, that new way is called containers as opposed to a virtual machine. It doesn't mean I have to go and build something new. I don't need a whole new stack. And the problem with silos is that they stifle innovation. Now, if you go and have a conversation with Gartner, they'll tell you that innovation is simple. You have mode 1, which was last year's innovation. You have mode 2, which is tomorrow's innovation. And I dare say that in a year's time, we'll have a new level of innovation called mode 3 IT. And you should go and turn all the mode 2 stuff off. I've got lots of smiles and grins and nods. The reality is not really how innovation works. Innovation is cyclical. And this is really important because it's the key tenet for why it's useful to have a single platform to run all this stuff on. And I mean a single infrastructure platform as well as a single applications platform. So the way that innovation works in the real world is this concept of pioneers, settlers, and town planners. Is there anyone familiar with this? If anyone's read some of the work done by a guy called Simon Wardley, you will be. Basically, this takes the idea that a culture of theft exists within how we do innovation within our business. You have pioneering individuals, people who will go and do things in new ways. Think of the cowboys that went and opened the Wild West. They wanted to go and get gold, they had guns, they didn't really care how it was done, they were very goal-oriented. They went in and they opened the West. Behind those guys came a group of people called the settlers. The settlers came in, they built the first frontier towns, they built the first saloons, the first banks. They started to open out that space that the pioneers had opened. And behind them came the town planners. And the town planners industrialized things at scale. Now the question is, where did the cowboys get the guns from that they used to open the West? Well, they got them from the gun factories the town planners had already built. Let me give you a Lego analogy, because that makes far more sense in IT terms. A pioneer in your organization is the person who is most likely to build a partially working 3D printer out of Lego. That's me. I've actually had a go at doing that. It turns out it's very difficult to build 3D printers out of Lego, largely because they disassemble themselves slowly. A settler will come in and he will take that partially working 3D printer you built out of Lego and he will find a way of documenting how you might do it a second time. That's the function of the settler. And you can start to see these personas within IT, right? And then finally the town planners. The town planners will go and build a factory that makes 3D printer Lego sets that you can then go and sell. Again, back to the first question though, where did the pioneers get the Lego bricks from? The pioneers got the Lego bricks from the Lego factory that the town planners had already built in the previous cycle of innovation. Pioneers deal with things that are rare. They're happy with change. They're happy to go and do things that are a little bit out there. They're happy to take a risk. They're interested in agile and common components they can use to build things with. Settlers come in and they want to grow things. They want to differentiate, mature a product. They're interested in improvement and analysis and listening to feedback. That's what allows them to do their job well. And the town planners want to deal with common, structured, at-scale things. And this is what we do in IT. I talk to organizations all the time who are saying, oh yeah, we've gone and built our own Kubernetes platform. We built it ourselves because there was nothing else on the market. We had to do it. We wanted to take advantage of that. Where are those guys? They're here, they're pioneers. They're doing amazing things with this platform called Kubernetes. What's needed to allow them to translate that into something that gives their business some differentiated value? They have to push it from the Kubernetes platform being a pioneering thing and industrialize it so they can go and focus on being pioneering on top of the thing they just built. I put it to you that Amazon are not a pioneer. Amazon Web Services are awesome town planners, because what they do is they take technologies that operate, they build them at scale and industrialize them, and then they allow people to go and build pioneering things on top of those services. And so you have this culture of theft, right? The settlers take the stuff the pioneers built, they start to productize it. The town planners take the stuff that the settlers built and they start to industrialize it. And then eventually, once it's industrialized as a platform, a pioneer comes back and goes, wow, it's a really cool platform. I could do something with that. I can build something new. And so that cycle of innovation happens again. It's very difficult to drive round that cycle of innovation fast. If you build one mode of IT for the pioneers to do their cool, exciting stuff on, you build another mode of IT over here on potentially a completely different platform and infrastructure to allow them to go and do their stuff. And then finally, the industrialization guys down at the far end, they're building another completely different platform. And so what you're trying to do is you hand off the stuff the pioneers have done and pass it back down the chain. It becomes incredibly hard to do it, both from a platform perspective and from an infrastructure perspective. So we've heard from Cornelia and others this morning about how the platform works from an application perspective. But how can you build out something underneath that provides you an infrastructure platform that allows you to run all the things, that allows you to provide one platform, whether you're running a traditional 3-tier application that's got middleware and an old-fashioned SQL database behind it, all the way through to stuff using Kubernetes, PaaS, and function as a service. So to explore this, what you need to do is think about the evolution of applications as seen by the infrastructure team. Because the infrastructure team get calls from these guys that we call developers, and they go, hey, I've got a new shiny thing, I need a new way of running a new shiny thing. So back in the past, we had traditional monolithic applications. Most people still have these. It makes the majority of workloads that run today. Certainly for VMware, for our customers, this is our bread and butter still. Most of what we do is helping people run these fragile applications. They're expecting a highly resilient infrastructure underneath them. They're expecting to have high availability hardware. They're expecting the hardware to never fail. They're not cloud native. They're not failure aware. They are the things that no one wants to go near. No one wants to touch the servers, let alone patch them, reboot them, or change anything. They're fragile. And there's loads of technologies available. We have one called vRealize Automation, for example, that enables you to ensure that IaaS stack that sits underneath those fragile traditional applications stays up and happy. What tends to happen over time, though, as the application evolves, is people start to say, I need to do IT faster. I'm getting pressure from the business. I need to find faster ways of building my IT estate. And often what we see is people go, this isn't giving me the ability to consume compute, network, and storage fast enough. I need a quicker, lower friction way of consuming compute, network, and storage. And if that conversation had been happening 18 to 24 months ago, then the kind of thing people would have reached for is they'd say, like, let's go and explore if we can use something like OpenStack. It's going to give me an API, it's going to give me a way to consume compute infrastructure really quickly and really simply as a developer or an application owner. I no longer have to go through a painful approvals process. You know, I liken this perhaps to being a fixed price menu in a restaurant. The same analogy would turn this into a buffet. I can take what I want when I want. But you know what? It turns out that that's not actually how you build applications faster. Transforming the infrastructure layer doesn't achieve that. The way you build applications faster is to drive up the rate of change, drive down the size and risk of change. And so people start to deconstruct their applications, just as we were talking about in the previous session, where we're identifying workloads to build in new ways. So now you start to move to microservice-based applications or hybrid apps. And the hybrid app is quite key here, because what we're seeing, particularly in large organizations, is the first step customers are taking is they're saying, there's a piece of this monolithic thing that has real value to me. So it's my analytics engine for my loyalty card that I run in my supermarket. It's the piece of algorithm that tells me how much I should charge someone for insurance in their house based on a flood risk profile, right? That's really important information. It's what differentiates. People are trying to take these pieces and push them this way as quickly as possible. Very often, though, in the hybrid model, they still have to work with this stuff over here. The end-to-end application still has to use the old legacy stuff and a bit of the new stuff. And that's where we're seeing those first steps being taken by customers. Now, what's interesting is you can start to do this on top of an IaaS, but you quickly start to realize that actually that's not what you need in order to innovate faster. Rather than an API for infrastructure, what would be really useful was if I could provide my developers with an API for code. And so containers appear, and now I have the ability to call via an API code that I need access to, right? OpenStack's still giving you a VM. You have operational overhead, you have to look after it, patch it, manage it. There's a whole lot of stuff you have to do. We've taken a step away from that with containers. And then finally, I want to move to a true cloud native application. So I've evolved now from a traditional monolithic. I've taken my first steps through building hybrid applications where I've got a bit of both, and I'm trending down this way towards building truly cloud native apps. So what do I need then? Okay, so now I want to run containers with some orchestration. So I want containers as a service, something like Kubernetes to enable me to run containers at scale. Here I'm really only using containers for packaging. Here I'm driving containers out to something at scale. And then I go beyond that and I say, you know what? Just as people were saying earlier with PAS, I'd just rather write code. Give me something I can run code on. Okay, we have an answer for that. You can run that on top of something like PCF. PAS enables you to just deploy the code and not care about the abstraction layer underneath it that enables it to run. And then going into the future, we're going to see people wanting to access functions as a service and access functions as a service locally as well. You know, people aren't going to want to push all those functions as a service into the cloud. They're going to want to run them proximally. You don't want the decision about whether or not your airbag goes off in your car made in the cloud. You want that decision made locally. And so more and more, functions as a service is going to be something that you're going to see closely tied to IoT strategies within organizations, because those functions are going to have to do things very quickly on a proximity basis. And so these three boxes at the end become what we in Pivotal call PCF 2.0, right? This is the Kubernetes layer in the form of PKS, the PCF layer in the form of what's now PAS, and functions as a service as well. Now, what often happens if you present this to a customer is a customer then says, this is great, I'm doing all of this now. I've got VMware here, I'm using Red Hat here, I'm using Docker on bare metal here. Here we've got some OpenShift. I've got more PAS here, and I haven't looked at FAS yet. And you go back and you say, but you've just built like six silos. And you just told me silos were bad, but you've just built 6 of them. How are you innovating across those? When you push your first bit of application from here over to here, how are you connecting that in its now, let's imagine they're doing containers on bare metal. How are you integrating that from an infrastructure layer back to all the stuff over here? It's very hard to do that if you can't provide a globally consistent infrastructure. And that's what VMware is focusing on providing. We want to provide one single infrastructure that simply enables you to run all the things. Whether that thing is a traditional 3-tier, very old application, or whether that thing is functions as a service running in PCF, it's one infrastructure. It enables you to not only connect that application platform story to the underlying infrastructure story underneath. Right, that's really important, because as you try and build applications, it matters that this bit talks to this bit in a consistent way. It matters that you can secure that. It matters that you understand what's happening. It matters that you're auditing it. From a customer experience perspective, it matters that I can now manage that application, its performance, its usage, its resource utilization as one service. It is incredibly hard to manage that if you start trying to span multiple infrastructure stacks and multiple platform stacks. And when we say globally consistent infrastructure, we're talking about VMware software-defined data center, right? vSphere, NSX, vSAN, those technologies that have enabled us to liberate compute, network, and storage from their physical locations. But we've gone a step further than that. What we've actually said is we can enable you to run all the things pretty much anywhere you want, because this global consistent infrastructure has basically taken a step forward now to become an operating system for data centers. So I can now deliver you all of these workload types on a single consistent infrastructure with consistent operations, whether you want to run that on top of Amazon Web Services, whether you want to run it on top of a managed IBM cloud, whether you want to run it in your own on-premise or off-premise data center, or if you want to leverage the services of 4,500 vCloud providers globally, such as OVH. That's a really compelling proposition, because what I'm effectively doing is I'm giving you the choice of virtually any provider down here. I'm abstracting the compute, network, and storage and the challenge of operations of running that, and enabling you to run all the things that are important to your business on top of it. Alongside Pivotal, they're then allowing you the choice of how you deploy that from a single platform model. Now, this is where you realize that you should have checked the slides the other presenters were doing before you go on to the next one. Unfortunately, I didn't. But ultimately, it's also about choosing the right abstraction level for the job. So we've been through these slides, so I'll skip through them very quickly. But depending on what the need is, you might just want a container. You might not care about scale. You might not care about delivering a platform service. You might just be looking for an applications platform. You might be looking for serverless functions. The point is, they can all be delivered from one place. And no matter what you do, you're always going to have some trade-offs, right? So the more you go down to this space and you're looking at bare containers and unstructured container workloads, the more work there's going to be in building the environment. There's more DIY involved. The more you move towards serverless, the more you're taking an off-the-shelf service and consuming it. And likewise with a perceived complexity for development operations. So normally at this point, I start to get questions going, well, what's the benefit? Why would I care about this consistent platform, right? I can build one of these things myself. It's all available open source, and networking is frequently something we end up using as an example. So let me give you an operational simplicity example around networking. Why might I care that I have a single platform to do networking? Well, let's look at the networking needs of something like Kubernetes. So the networking needs of Kubernetes, Layer 2 networking. How might I do that? And I have plagiarized this slide, Steve, sorry. How might I do that? The Layer 2 networking piece, well, I could go and deliver that with something like Flannel. It's open source, it'll do the job, it delivers what I need. Great, tick in the box. What else? What else might I need? Some Layer 3 and Layer 4 services. So some security policies. Yeah, I can get that. I can go and I can use Calico for that. I can build that myself as well. I can take it from open source. I can start to assemble all this stuff myself. Then I might need some load balancing. Okay, yeah, we can do load balancing open source as well. Let's go and get some of that. So then you build load balancing into the equation, and now I can deliver an HA proxy load balancer. Now I need some VM connectivity, because underneath this I'm running on an infrastructure of VMs. I care about that. Well, really anything that delivers that. There's kind of a hole there, so I probably have to try and work out how I do that myself. And then finally, what's important in order to deliver a user experience and customer experience is end-to-end management, audit, log, tracking and correlation of events. Well, I can probably go and find one of those. Nothing generally springs to mind within the Kubernetes space, but there's a whole range of things that I could use to do that. So these are all my needs of networking, and these are all the ways that I could go and build it myself. The advantage of taking this from a single platform is when you buy PKS, all that's just built in. Not only is it all built in, it all just comes as standard with the product. There's no need to go and be a pioneer to do all this stuff. We've town planned it for you. It's available as a productized commodity service that you can just deploy, and then you can go and focus on being pioneering on top of that. And that's what this is all about. Leveraging globally consistent platforms and architectures, taking a standard way of doing things and moving that layer of innovation above the value line. That's what's really important for how you guys can go and deliver quickly and efficiently and break out of those silos and accelerate that cycle of innovation. So in a shameless plug for the team in Europe that can help you guys do that, we've got a team of people in each of the regions across Europe. We have Northern, Central and Southern Europe. These guys are ex-developers. They understand the challenge of building applications. They're long-term VMware people as well, though, so they understand the challenge of building infrastructure. Robbie here in Northern EMEA. Robbie runs a special interest group for Kubernetes on vSphere. He owns that. He's an ex-IBM WebSphere developer. By that I mean he wrote WebSphere. We've got Bjorn in Central EMEA. Bjorn has huge operational experience working with customers like Vodafone and TUI, helping them operationalize this stuff. So these guys are ready to step up and have that application-centric conversation about the needs of the infrastructure. And supporting them, in fact she's at the back of the room today, we've got Alicia. Alicia's one of our global SEs, and she can help you have that conversation around the PKS element of whatever solution that you end up delivering, all right? She can help you with the POCs, she can help you understand the integration points, and she can ease the speed at which you guys can get this stuff into production and tested. So with 4 minutes early, that's all from me. Hopefully that's been a really brief overview as to why a single platform to run all the things makes sense, and why the settlers, pioneers, town planner model is a really good way of thinking about how do I go about taking stuff that I've innovated on and push it into production to enable me to get round that cycle for the second time so I can go do something really innovative. Thank you.